Have you ever really thought about your social life the same way you think about, say, your diet or your exercise routine? We track our steps, we count our calories, we schedule our time at the gym. But what if the single most powerful thing for our health is something we kind of just leave to chance? Well, let's dive into this, because today we are going to try to uncover the hidden code of social connection and explore the powerful, often invisible forces that are actively trying to pull us apart.
Okay, just let that sink in for a second. That is a huge statement, and it's really at the heart of what we're looking at today. We always hear about the big health rules, right? Don't smoke, get enough sleep, eat your veggies. But this research is telling us there's a fourth pillar, one that's just as vital, that we barely talk about. A strong social life isn't just a nice to have. It's a fundamental biological need. It's that important. And that leads us to the central mystery we're trying to solve. If being connected is so fundamentally good for us, like on a biological level, why does it feel like loneliness is everywhere? Why does it seem harder than ever to build and keep those deep, meaningful relationships? That's the question we're going to tackle, and trust me, the answers are hiding in some pretty unexpected places.
So, to really get to the bottom of this, we need to be on the same page. First things first, what do we even mean when we say social health?
Okay, here's a great working definition for us. Social health isn't just about how many friends you have. It's really this three-part skill. Yeah, it's forming those meaningful one-on-one connections, for sure. But it's also about actively taking part in the life of your community and, maybe most importantly, feeling like you belong, like you're integrated. It's the third pillar of well-being, standing right there next to physical and mental health.
And this image, this word cloud, really shows you just how complex it is. I mean, look at the words that jump out at you. Support and relationships are right there in the middle, of course. But you also see environment, participation, and trust. So you see, it's not just about who you know, it's about the quality of those connections and the world you have them in. It's a whole ecosystem.
And getting that this is an ecosystem is so important, because this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. This is not about telling everyone they need to be a social butterfly. I mean, think about it. An extrovert might feel amazing after a party with dozens of people, but for an introvert, that would be absolutely draining. The goal is the same for both, meaningful connection. For that introvert, one really deep 2-hour conversation can be way more socially nutritious than 20 small talk interactions. The bottom line is, it's all about quality, not just quantity.
So, if connection is this vital, what's getting in our way? Well, let's start with the most obvious culprit, right? The little glowing screen that lives in all of our pockets.
And this table just lays out the paradox perfectly. For a teenager who feels vulnerable, the internet can be an absolute lifeline, a place to find people who get them. But on the flip side, that exact same space can expose them to really harmful content. It offers this incredible sense of validation and belonging, but it's also where these algorithmic rabbit holes can lead you down some very dark paths. It is truly both a refuge and a minefield.
So you have to ask, why take that risk? Well, it's because for so many, the digital world gives them something they feel they can't get anywhere else. They're looking for a community that won't judge them, a place where they can express themselves without fear, a place where they finally feel understood. And what's really interesting is that it's not just about getting support, it's also about giving it, using their own tough experiences to help other people out.
But, it's really easy to just blame our screens. Maybe too easy. And this is a huge pivot point for us. What if our phones and our apps aren't the cause of our disconnection, but a symptom of it? What if we're all flocking to these online spaces because the spaces for real human connection in the physical world are actually disappearing?
And that brings us to the invisible blueprint of our modern world. And this is where the story takes a really fascinating twist, pulling from some amazing research on how we design our cities and our spaces.
So check out this map. It was used a while back to argue for building massive new highways and infrastructure projects. And the point was super simple. It took way longer to move goods across Europe than it did in the US. And the solution? Build more, build faster, and remove every single obstacle. For decades, the #1 goal of planning hasn't been about people, it's been about creating a frictionless world for commerce, for stuff.
Which brings us to this core idea. There are basically two ways you can design a space. You've got the space of flows, which is all about efficiency. Think highways, airports, shipping lanes. It's all about moving things from A to B as fast as possible. And then you have the space of places. And that's designed for people to interact and to linger. Town squares, local parks, that coffee shop on the corner.
For the last 50 years or so, the space of flows has completely taken over.
And this quote wow, it absolutely nails it. This is kind of the smoking gun. Frictionless existence rather than meaningful human interaction. Just let that sink in. We have spent decades systematically designing a world that prioritizes speed over connection. We have engineered out all those little opportunities for spontaneous chats, for bumping into neighbors, the very friction that actually builds a community. We built a world for cars and cargo, and now we're surprised when we feel lonely in it.
So that's the diagnosis. We're living in a world that's been optimized for things to move without friction, and that's accidentally made it much, much harder for people to connect. So that leads to the biggest question of all. What on earth do we do about it? How do you fight back and build connection in a world that seems to be designed against it?
And this brings us to the final part of our journey, and honestly, the most hopeful part. We figured out the problem. Now, let's talk about the solution.
Let's use an analogy here. I want you to think of your ability to connect with people as a muscle. Now, what happens when you put an astronaut in a zero-gravity environment? Well, without any resistance to push against, their muscles start to waste away. They atrophy. Our modern, frictionless world, the one that's designed for perfect convenience and self-sufficiency, is a kind of social zero-gravity. It doesn't give our connection muscles the workout they desperately need to stay strong.
And this is the key insight. The solution isn't to make things even easier or more convenient. The solution is to intentionally reintroduce friction back into our lives. But not just any friction. We need to create moments of positive friction, constructive friction that encourage us, even force us, to engage with one another.
And the ways to do this can be surprisingly simple. First, you prioritize connection just like you would a workout. You literally schedule it. Put that coffee date with a friend in your calendar and make it as non-negotiable as a doctor's appointment. And second, and this one is so powerful, you have to intentionally ask for help. Our world is built for total self-sufficiency, right? You can get anything you want delivered to your door without ever talking to another human being. Resist that. Asking a neighbor if they can grab your mail isn't an inconvenience. It's a micro-dose of community building. It's an invitation to connect.
And I really want to end on this incredible way of reframing that idea. When you ask someone for a small favor, you are not being a burden. You are actually giving that person a gift. You're giving them an opportunity to show up for you, to be useful, to strengthen the bond between you, and to feel like they actually matter in your life. It completely flips the script from seeing it as a moment of weakness to seeing it as an act of generosity.
So that's our journey through the connection code. We've seen that social health is a critical pillar of our well-being, and it's being threatened not just by our screens, but by the very blueprint of the world we've built. But the power to rebuild it is in our hands through these small, intentional acts of positive friction. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What's one small, simple piece of positive friction you could create this week to give that connection muscle a workout?